Yes, I can hear you, Justice McCollum.
Right, you've been through the cyclone.
You have been through the cyclone.
Now, you wish to read your statement to the Commission, is that right?
Yes, I do, Your Honour.
In the ordinary course, giving evidence requires you to be sworn. Do you have a Bible handy?
Your Honour, would I be able to do an affirmation?
Certainly, certainly. And in that event, would you repeat after me? I do solemnly, sincerely and truly
I solemnly, sincerely and truly
declare and affirm
that
the evidence I shall give to this Royal Commission
that the evidence that I shall give to this Royal Commission
shall be the truth,
shall be the truth,
the whole truth,
and nothing but the truth,
and nothing but the truth.
and nothing but the truth.
Right. I'll hand back to Mr. Lloyd to take you through your statement.
Thank you.
Ms. Bray, you've made a statement.
I am a single mother of 4 children and a final year law student. Being a survivor of sexual abuse is like being in a lifelong invisible war. Just like many fellow survivors, the scars that we carry and the battles that we fight cannot be visually identified. If the scars of sexual abuse were visual, I'm sure I would be in a wheelchair with missing limbs and horribly deformed with burns and scars. The damage that sexual abuse causes to survivors is undefined. Even though we may have physically survived, we have been sentenced to a torturous life sentence, full of unnumbered battles. The damage is catastrophic. My words today do not even scratch the surface to be able to describe the full impact that the abuse has had on me and my children. Despite the personal cost, I have been determined not to let my abuse control and define me. The most difficult battle that still has a huge impact on me as a person is the injustice that I have suffered from a religion that professes to have higher standards than other religions. I was ostracised and silenced from speaking about the abuse to anyone, and so I could not deal with it at the time, and I was forced to internalise all of the pain, grief, anger, betrayal, worthlessness and shame. I have suffered feelings of abandonment and worthlessness, and these overwhelmed me so much that I attempted suicide as a teenager. There was no support from the religion, my family or friends. Not one person would stand by my side to help, protect or advocate for me. In fact, it is the injustice of this treatment that drives me, and it is a very big part of the reason why I have come forward today. It is a very callous way to be treated, and in my opinion, it has been far worse and caused more damage to me than the abuse itself. No survivor of abuse should be made to feel this way. Despite my best efforts to distance myself from the religion, the snowball effects of the abuse and subsequent treatment by the religion have permeated my life like a cancer. The snowball effects have taken priority and consumed my life so much that until I had to prepare for today, did I actually realise how much it has impacted my life. Primarily, it has damaged every aspect of my life, particularly emotionally, but also with relationships, education and employment. The emotional pain manifested as physical pain. For years after the abuse, I recall actually feeling physical pain, something that I could describe as being hit by a truck. I was robbed of my innocence, my childhood, my adolescence, young adulthood and the years since. I have fought many battles silently within myself, and while some of these battles have been at stages throughout my life, others I continue to fight on a daily basis. I have struggled with depression, panic attacks, high anxiety, overwhelming feelings of anger, worthlessness and betrayal. My intimate relationships have been driven directly by the abuse. Significantly, it caused me to make poor choices in partners. This is not because I'm a bad judge of character, but rather because domestic violent behaviour was normalised within my family. It was only since I studied law did I realise that my upbringing and the dictatorial beliefs of my parents and the religion were not normal. I was astounded to discover that they actually fell well below what was an acceptable standard of society. It was my exposure to the law that truly opened my eyes to the fact that my partner at the time was very similar to my abuser. He was extremely manipulative, physically, financially and emotionally abusive in an effort to control me, my children and me. After a difficult separation, I learned the true extent of the physical and emotional abuse that my children were subject to, some of which included animal torture, threats of harm, physical violence, and my daughter even saw a grave that had been prepared for me. Coming to the realisation of the dangerous and damaging position I had exposed my children to and that I had been exposed to utterly devastated me as a mother and as a person, especially when my whole life's goal was to protect my children from any type of abuse. Despite feeling like a total failure, I have worked extremely hard to protect and repair my children. I found the Aardvark domestic violence course particularly helpful for my daughter and myself. It has taught us what acceptable behaviour is and what is not. With a lot of support, my 3 sons are now rebuilding their lives. The impact of the abuse and the indoctrination of the religion has greatly affected my ability to trust and form close relationships with people, particularly in my younger adult life after I left the religion. We were taught from a young age that people outside our religion served Satan and they should not be trusted. I believe that if I had possessed the capacity to trust someone at this stage in my life, it would have prevented my children and me from remaining in an abusive relationship and being subject to domestic violence for the next 10 years. I would also have asked someone for help when my partner at the time was physically violent and abusive towards me in an attempt to force me to abort my daughter. My education and employment are another snowball effect and have been directly affected by the abuse. The religion and my family controlled my education and kept me segregated from society, and I was not allowed to be educated past year 10 or work full time. This limited my employment choices. I found it extremely distressing that I was not able to grieve and process my emotions at the time of the abuse, because it has forced me to deal with it later on in life after I've become a mother, which ultimately affected my children. At the time, I had 3 young boys that I was financially, emotionally and physically responsible for. I wanted to give them opportunities, acceptance and unconditional love that I had never had. I could not let any of my emotions out because I was afraid that I would shatter and completely fall apart. I had to disconnect emotionally to get through the subsequent criminal trials. This meant that I disconnected from everyone, including my children. Another aspect of employment is my tendency to overwork and give 300% instead of 100%. I believe that I am so driven because I'm always looking for validation of my own self-worth. The abuse and the cruel treatment of the religion, former friends and family disintegrated my self-worth as a person. Unlike other people who may naturally have the ability to retain a measure of self-worth, I feel that I need to continually work hard to confirm and replenish the fact that I matter and that I am of some value. I am so used to being accountable for everything and working hard that I find it difficult to allow myself to take time out and relax. Despite my tendency to overwork, the abuse has impacted my ability to work and be a mother at the same time. After the birth of my daughter, I set up a hairdressing salon at home so I could care for my daughter and work at the same time because I was petrified she would be at risk of being abused in a daycare centre. It was particularly challenging to work full-time with a baby. It meant that I spent possibly 5 to 6 times longer to complete tasks, which meant that I worked longer hours to earn enough money to support me and my children. Irrespective of the fact that I have worked extremely hard to educate myself and taken various steps to try and erase the harm caused by my abuse, I have not been able to stop the snowball effect, stop the triggers or reverse the damage. I cannot make what happened to me disappear. Thankfully, I now have a support network of precious friends who encourage me when times have been really tough. I'm very grateful for them and believe that it is their acceptance of me that has helped me be resilient enough to speak today. The only positive thing that has come out of being a victim of sexual abuse is that I have been given an opportunity by the Royal Commission to assist fellow survivors, to which I am also very grateful for. My advice for other survivors is to be angry about your abuse. It is cowardly and unjust. It is my desire to protect other people that gave me the courage to expose my abuser. We should not be ashamed of what happened to us. It is not our sin. The sin rests with the abuser, the religious institutions and the individuals that have allowed the abuse to continue. Don't be one of them. Staying silent gives your abuser an opportunity to reoffend. I urge you to take back your power and your voice to expose them, because they are the ones that need to wear the shame. For those that are not able, I will keep advocating on your behalf for changes to the law. Given the damage and the lifelong effects that we are forced to suffer, I believe that religious institutions should be criminally and financially liable for covering up acts of sexual abuse.
Your Honour, excuse Ms. Breyer.
Thank you for your statement and for making the time available today. We're sorry you couldn't join us in Sydney, but thank you. And I know you received a summons, so it's necessary for me to excuse you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you indeed.